Recording in progress.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Good afternoon. Before we get started, I'm going to invite us to just sit and collect ourselves. Find your breath. Sitting in an upright, relaxed position. Find the breath, the faithful breath. Notice that you are breathing. Take a deep breath in and out. Take 3 deep breaths, breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in positivity, breathing out and letting go of old stale air and stale stories. Breathing in, breathing out. Sitting with our attention in the breath. Relax the body. Drop your shoulders. Relax your arms and be still. Taking a deep breath in, believe this, that I am a human being full of life and possibility. Breathing in, believe that I love myself unconditionally. Breathing in, believe that sometimes I do not know, and it is okay not to know. What is not known is an invitation to be curious. Breathing in, believe that I do my best, and I let go of the rest. If your mind wanders off, come back to the home base of the breath. Gently and easily on the next breath, bring yourself back to this place and time. And prepare yourself for our Dharma. Thank you. It is truly wonderful to be back, literally and figuratively. Many of you know that I took a plane over to Portugal, and the adventure began. It started with flying into London and landing and finding that my plane to Portugal, to Porto, was canceled, along with 100 other British Airways flights. And because I was at the front end of that knowledge, because I had flown all night, I was sort of first on the mark, I got to be third in line at the customer service. And the friends that I had planned this trip with over the last 3 years, because it kept being put off and put off, ones that were coming from Colorado, and they got in after I did, and after there was a 4-hour line wait to figure out what to do next. Because I was the third one, I got to talk to them to hear that there were no flights going to Porto. And I'm tired because I'd flown all night. I said, okay, well, what are my options? And they said, well, you could take a bus to another airport and fly this evening up to Porto. And I'm thinking, I have not slept. I'm going to get on a bus somewhere, go to some airport, get on a plane and go to Porto, arriving at midnight to find my way to this place we had reserved. I said, well, you have no other options? And she said, no. I didn't realize the depth and breadth of the problem. Meanwhile, next to me, there was a couple, and I somehow overheard they were in the same situation. And I tapped him on the shoulder and I said, I'm in the same situation. And he looked at me like I was some being from outer space. Little did I know that this man and this woman didn't speak English, but we were going to the same place. So I decided I was going to, in fact, go because of the situation. I was going to go to the next airport, Gatwick, which was an hour bus ride away, and find the fact that there was a bus station within the airport somewhere. But I had to get my luggage. And then together, the three of us, with no English and no Portuguese, made our way to the central station, only to, there was no ticket counter. There was just machines. And put some money in, or a credit card in, and it didn't work right. Really, I didn't work right. And so I got a ticket for 20 euros to go the next day at 3 p.m. And he's looking at me and I'm like, this is not working, and, trying to communicate. So we went downstairs. Now I've done a trip out, back, and there was this wonderful bodhisattva. And that's why I'm telling this story. One of the reasons I'm telling this story. This man that was from England, and he, of course, spoke English, and he was amazing. He was an angel. And he was all about it, trying to help everybody and us. And meanwhile, I was trying to talk to them. I said, they don't speak English. Talk to me and I will try to help them. He said, well, you could take the train. And he pulled out this big tube map. It looked like a city, which it was. And he said, well, you would take the red and then the green line, and then you'd take the yellow line, and then you'd take that to the orange line, and then you'd get to the airport. I'm like, no, that's not going to work. So back upstairs, he took us back upstairs and got someone that knew how to run the machines. And as we're standing there, I realized that when I picked up my suitcase, I put down my backpack and left it sitting there by the carriage where you pick up luggage. And at that point, every bit of practice and years of trying to be calm went out the window with my exhaustion. I said, I don't have my pack. I got to get my pack. Because in my pack was my money, because I kept it with me, and the important documents. So the Bodhisattva said, I'll help you. So he took me back across the airport, Heathrow, which is huge. And he connected me with a supervisor who then had to connect me to a supervisor who then, and meanwhile, the people I left that didn't speak English sitting there with my suitcase, and they were going to wait. After about 15 minutes, and I'm thinking, I know where I set it down. If I can just, but it's the airport, and any bag left alone, what? Either gets blown up or certainly checked. So I'm thinking, so somehow I got in, he got in, they went in, I got into this dark room that only security people are in. And this guy's on a walkie-talkie and they're talking, and he says, what's it look like? It's a black bag. It's a bag. It's a black backpack. Do you know how many black backpacks exist in this world? He said, what else? I said, well, it's, I'm trying to remember the name of the, he goes, does it have a white water bottle? I said, that's it. That's my bag, and I can tell you everything that's in it. Well, they had it. We had to walk back across the airport to go to a baggage room, locked baggage room, and waited another 15 minutes. The bus is about to leave in 5 minutes that we need to catch to get to Gatwick. And the guy that's my other bodhisattva was saying, well, would you have other luggage? And I said, yeah, it's with the people that I'm going to use. Do you know them? I said, well, I don't really, but never leave your bag with people you don't know. Yes, I know, but they should never leave your bag with people you don't know. I said, okay, but I said, okay, I got never, I'll never do it again. I will never do it again. The guy came, I got my bag, went back across the airport. This is about the 4th or 5th time. We got up, we got the tickets, the bus came, my backpack and my bag with me. We got to the airport, we sat, had some time, we sat and had a meal. I'm trying to help them with the menu. And another bodhisattva shows up. This time it's the waiter, and he speaks Portuguese. And so this is wonderful. Everything kind of calmed down because they were understanding and I was understanding, and we all got some food that we needed badly. After having gone to the bathroom, which was the next more important thing. And then we had to go down. And these days when you travel to Europe, you have to fill out what's called a locator card, so that should you get COVID, they could figure out where you've been and so forth. But because now I'm on a different airline, I have to fill out another locator card once the ticket counter opens. So I do it, and it is not an easy thing to do. It takes time, and you got to go through all these lines. And I met my 4th bodhisattva. The ticket counter, the woman, was very sweet and kind and gracious. The one down was not so. She was tired and cranky, and those friends of mine from Brazil couldn't communicate with her. and she was getting more upregulated, and they were trying to figure out, and he's handing her papers that that's not it, that's not it. And finally I said, what do you, and he turns around and he points to me, and so I go over. Now we've been getting pretty good with trying to communicate here with hands and gestures, and she said, I need his vaccine card. So I turned around and I said, real slow, like that's gonna change anything. Vaccine card. Duray used to say that with me in India, as if slowing down would change things. But anyhow, he didn't get it, and I did this, and I punched him in the shoulder like this. He goes, oh, yes, 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 and he got it. And so we got that. We got on the plane. We got to where we needed to be. We got everything with us, keeping track of each other. So there we were working as a little sangha right there. And I waited, and once I got through customs, I waited for them. He came up and he showed me Facebook on his phone, and I said yes. And so we shared Facebook connections, gave each other big hugs. And I had a car waiting for me thanks to the place that we were staying. And I got to the place, and I took a shower, or tried to, because it's so different and I didn't figure out how it went. Settled down finally about 1:30, got to sleep. And I went to sleep thinking, I'm never going to travel again. This is it. Until the next morning. And the woman that rents out these apartments was incredibly wonderful. So my 5th or 6th bodhisattva, and she told me the history of Portugal and Porto, where we were staying for the first day, and told me where I could get some nice breakfast. My friends that were from Denver were coming in the afternoon, and we were surprising the other friends whose birthday celebration it was. They didn't know. For 3 years I kept a secret. They didn't know that these other friends were coming, until I heard that this bodhisattva sitting in front of me said, well, I wrote Sally and told her that Maria and Lauren were also stuck. I'm like, no, they don't know they're coming. She said, well, they didn't write back. Well, they didn't get it. And so later that afternoon, I told them after flying all night that I met some people that are also going to be on this riverboat, and I invited them to have dinner with us tonight. Now, they had come to find out was these friends, and everything was perfect for the next 4 days. Until COVID came to pay a visit to the boat. And in the next 3 days, over half of the boat dropped. Still, I was negative for the entire time. And on that boat, you can imagine the chaos that was pursuing. There was only 85 people on this boat. I met 3 or 4 different bodhisattvas on this boat. And as my friends dropped, all 4 of them, so now I'm sort of doing solo here on this trip, I met 2 more bodhisattvas. When I look back, had I gone through with my thinking, my tired, exhausted thinking of I'm not traveling again, I would have missed out every single piece of it. I wouldn't have appreciated or connected with or learned as much as I did so far over a week's time. Every step, every turn, there was a bodhisattva. It, went from bad to worse on the boat. And in the end, everyone was escorted and tested positive to a hotel that was willing to quarantine. They were quarantined on the boat and quarantined in the hotel. I'm still testing negative through the whole thing. And I'm really needing to remind myself this is an incredible opportunity. But the level of angst and worry and illness was pervasive, and it just kept upping and upping as people kept dropping and dropping. And the Bodhisattva, one of the main Bodhisattvas on the boat, got me a room in a hotel where my friends are staying, not in the quarantine area, in a different area. And I continued to meet Bodhisattvas in the 2 days I was there. And some other friends that I met previously, my other angels or Bodhisattvas, I couldn't find flights out, and I just knew I needed to get home. The rest of the trip was canceled. The flights needed to be canceled. Places to stay needed to be canceled. Hours online, hours on hold. But these friends that also got COVID texted me and said, "We have lots of miles. Can we get you a flight home?" And I thought, oh my God, you just have to get yourself to Amsterdam, which was a piece of cake in my book at this point. And so I got my flight to Amsterdam. And not only did they get me a flight home, they got me a flight home from Amsterdam to Detroit, which was sort of like backwards, but it's a flight. It was first class. First class. And of course, you can see that the tears still well up to the gift. And from Detroit to Charlotte, which was where I started from, I got that extended space, I guess you call it. And then there was some complication about checking your bag and having it go straight through, and it was different airlines. But the Bodhisattva at the ticket counter said, "Okay, we can check it all the way through. We can do that for you." He called his supervisor. And somewhere over the Atlantic, I started feeling, now I tested negative because you have to test negative to get out of the country. And if you're positive, you're 10 days quarantine in Portugal. I tested negative. And like, not only do I have a negative test, I have a flight home, and it's first class on top of everything else. Somewhere over Atlanta, I started feeling not so well. And I got back to my friends. They housed me overnight so I didn't have to drive back from Charlotte. I got into my place. First thing I did is test positive. I tested, and the line came up like that. And at that point, it didn't matter. I was home. I was home. I was home, back to a familiar place, a familiar Sangha, friends who checked on me, provided food, and made sure I was going to be okay. My neighbor upstairs, who's a nurse, brought down 2 big bags full of stuff, not food, stuff to take, and all sorts of stuff. And meanwhile, more and more people dropped. So I'm certain that the entire boat got COVID at some point, either there or at home. But even within that, there was this collective group of people supporting and helping each other. When I got to the hotel, I got the names of people who were quarantined and went out, and even though they were getting room service, got extra waters and fruit, and just supporting. And that collective community of people, the shared experience, continued on, and it still is. There's still notes going, "How are you doing?" People that I met briefly during that trip, real briefly, because 3 days into the trip, they started getting sick. So a week later, I'm sitting here and able to share the story because it really reflects everything we've been studying in this book, Becoming a Bodhisattva, or No Time to Lose. No time to lose. And more than ever now, I feel the urgency about that. More than ever, I feel the urgency of learning not just what this book has to say, but noticing it and stepping into it day by day, moment by moment. My awareness of both the giving and the taking, which is what Pema talks about. What does it look like for you? What does it sound like for you? What does it feel like for you as you step into this practice? Because if all it does is stay on the black and white paper here, it does us no good. It's like being in college and just getting through to take the test and then be done. So I am aware of the fact that I haven't been here for the last 2 weeks. And so I would like to open up and have this be a dialogue about where this has shown up for you. I mean, I just spent a good 20 minutes sharing, and it's not necessary to do so. But where does it show up for you? What do you notice inside as it does show up? And for me, there was definitely fear, worry, disappointment, a 3-year plan that went sideways from the get-go, basically. And within that, I learned and grew with every step I took. So I do want to open it up to Zoom land and to us here, and have you share with me where you've been. What has been your journey the last 2 weeks, if not longer? Oh, something's. Oh, thank you. That's better.
So for the last 2 weeks, maybe even the last week, how this is showing up for me is to really remain present as much as possible. Really remain present when I'm with family, out on the tennis court, even in situations or in times where others can have a tendency to want to kind of analyze why they're in pain, and stay in my head and then just kind of protect myself a little bit. And for example, I went to Charlotte to take my 8-year-old niece to a Disney concert. I'm really excited about I'm her godmother, taking good care of her and celebrating her birthday. And when I was with her, I could sense her sadness and her pain. And while she was sitting beside me in the concert, I could feel her tears on my hand. And I thought, Sue, you cannot close down. You need to be present for this child. And I know that the story, her mother, not a good situation. But she was missing her mother and just wanted me to hold her. And, I was telling Joe on the way back from Charlotte that it's hard for me to go back home. It was hard for me to look at a 9-year-old knowing, without getting ahead of myself, she was going to be without a mother and all of that. But just right here, right now, what can you do to touch this child and care for her? And that's it. Get out of your head, get quiet, So I just wanted to share that as an example of remaining present in my heart without going overboard, overanalyzing things. So thank you. Thanks. Yeah.
Sue?
Yeah, sure.
Gathering myself after that. What I have to share is not nearly as emotional. As you may be aware, I have a very kind of tactical approach to the Dharma. How can I walk this out? How can I use it? How can I carry it out, to Ingalls, to the gym, whatever. I was listening a couple of weeks back to NPR, as happens in the car. There's a few stations I run through, and NPR is one of them. And it was maybe Fresh Air, and there was an interview with a woman, and it turned out she had written a book. But I heard her say one thing. She said, I knew that if I grew up the way they did, if I lived the way they did, if I was part of the culture they were from, then I would believe the same thing. And it brought me right to, this world we live in where, there's social media and just media, and just availability of information and understanding of what people think about anything. And then our tendency to judge. And I'm aware of my judging mind. And so I said, I should read her book. Because her book is a memoir. It's called Educated. It's Tara Westover. And her book is a memoir of her growing up in kind of a really fundamentalist woman background with a very with a father who was, had some mental illness, but was also, his belief system was very, very extreme. The end of days are coming, and then he's literally putting gas tanks in the ground, and he drove the whole family through this life. And so that's how she grew up, and they didn't go to school, and because of that, one of her brothers eventually did go to school, and she eventually did go to school too, not high school, because they missed all that, but she was able to get into college. And when she got exposed to the world outside of this little farm that they were on with a scrapyard that was their sort of livelihood, she had a really hard time letting go of those beliefs, her beliefs. And so I read the book, and I just finished it. So I wasn't reading this book, I was reading that book, because I wanted to inform my mind of that, there's so many people believe so many things, and there's all this conspiracy theory, and there's all this tendency to believe things. And I wanted to understand that so I could accept it more easily, so I could let go of right? She said, it's easy to say people are ignorant, or they're just ignorant, or they just, But if I grew up like that, I would think the same thing. I would believe the same thing. And so I just really wanted to help temper my own mind. And so I just finished the book last night, and I think it'll help.
I think we can be socialized into the they this, they that, they, because it's not what's familiar or similar or follows the belief system. Many of us grew up in a family that broke away from some of that old thinking somehow. And yet to stay in it is the true practice. True practice of love, true practice of being present, and not to cut ourselves off from it, but to be with it and to do what we can in that presence to be able to maybe move the world in a way that makes more sense to the world. So good for you for being willing to open yourself up. And that really is what this is about. It's not about these words. And Panyawadi talks about that. It's not about these words as much as it is about what it looks like. And so it is educating in other realms, not just this book, but those books. I'm glad you brought that up. I read that a while back, and it just was a perfect reminder of those. It's about stepping out and really learning and growing from what we see and what we experience and bringing ourselves to those moments day after day and moment after moment, and not staying cocoon-like into just one book or one setting. But every time we step out and ask the questions, tell me more about it. I used to say that to the kids a lot in the classroom. They would say, "You don't understand." And I'd say, "You're right, I don't. Help me understand. Help me know." Others.
So many are examples of meeting so many bodhisattva. It's very encouraging to me because sometimes I hear I have to consistently be on the path, and that I'll, if I'm going to be a bodhisattva, I'm going to be at every moment of my life. And I feel like, well, that's just too big for who I am and what I think of myself. But when you say you met so many, it's like, it's encouraging that when it arises, yes, that's the right thing. I have the gift to give. I can be present and I can do it. Then, there are times I think, I'm not lost. I'm not perfect. But, having that beginner's mind and not being attached. I read Educate some time ago too. Having grown up in a very, not with that mindset, but a very small little town and not exposed to careers. I mean, literally when I grew up, I thought the choices in life were, as a female, to be a secretary, a teacher, or a nurse. And the people that I saw, even the men in life, were the mortician, my dad the doctor, the nurse and the car salesman and the pharmacist, and that was kind of all I knew that people did in the world from this small town, or they farmed, or they pumped cows. And it was a big shock to go to college and go to cities. And when I was in high school, I said, maybe I want to be a physical therapist. And I said, well, you'd have to live in a city. I went, well, I'm not going to do that, because happiness is in the country. And it took years, 9 years out of college before I went to PT school, doing other things. But it's like maybe there have been moments, and And I look back, and it's whether it's the concrete driveway guy we're dealing with says, I got this, you know, and when lots of other people haven't come through, you know, build. But it's going to be all right. We know it's going to be all right. So when, you know, putting on that hat, that luckily I had a career where it wasn't about me. It was about, what does this person need? How can I serve them to meet what they need in the holistic best way? Panuwati asked me a question to think about, you know, I said I need to think about it. I can't just answer now. What would kind of opportunities and treatment or environment would best serve Deepa at this time? And I was honored that she wanted my opinion, but I wasn't going to just answer. I needed to feel and gather, and I'm still formulating, and I learned something new yesterday. It's a big piece of the puzzle that I have to explore some more. But it's like, I'm getting more faith in that it's not a striving and a thinking. I'll just know, you know, when I've got it there, what to give or what to share. And just like these people you met, they saw, not even knowing you, but reading so many things. We know so much about each other without any language. And it's not putting up that wall or that boundary of fear, but, you know, letting it hit us and knowing how to respond. I didn't mean to go on this one. Thank you.
I'll speak.
Great.
I think I have a bit of no, it's okay now. Soma, I just wanted to thank you for your incredible story, and very happy that you are well and present. Last week, Panuwati played an excerpt from a discourse by Panyadeepa, and in it, he gave the instruction, love everybody all the time. And she suggested that we use that as a sort of mantra or reminder as we went into our week. And what really astonished me about that was how often it came to mind, meaning how often I had reactions to situations and people that were not wholesome. And it was surprising to me that after all these years of practice, that was still happening with the frequency that it did. And so it came up a lot, and I can't say that that I was able to shift every time to loving that person, but I was able to shift into neutral most of the time. And I think it was because that mantra enabled me not to develop or to elaborate a narrative, which is customarily what my mind would do. It would go on and on and on. And yet I still found myself feeling a bit guilty about how I hadn't seemed to come any farther than I would have thought. And at one point in thinking that, the mantra came up again, love everyone all the time. And I thought, wow, I get to apply this to myself too. And so, there you have it. I guess this is not about perfection.
It's definitely not about perfection.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you so much. Love everyone all the time. And when you think you're doing it, stop and think about, am I really? Am I really? Because it isn't about perfection, it's about growth. My life, I believe I'm here to grow. And every day, it's my morning mantra. Something I learned back when I was going to the ashram in Portland. We're here to grow. And books like this and teachers like Panyadeepa and Panyavati and Pema Chodron and many, many, many more are here giving us the same message. It's the same end game, it's just different paths to get there. And the real work is about taking what we get and applying it, stepping out. How is it budding? And when we're in the time of spring and the flowers are incredible. And even in spite of allergies, which I was hoping that this was, and it wasn't, it's incredibly beautiful, and it has so much to give us, this life-giving time, this life-giving season. Panyavati has said that, the words are just words unless we do something with them. It's how I describe what she says. This isn't a bodhisattva course. It's not something that we read and study and get the words in our head, pass the test, as I said in the beginning, and then walk on to the next one, to the next book or the next discourse. And even when we think that we are doing our best, move that line just a wee bit higher. And I know we'll land there. Every time I know we'll land there. And when we're there and we think we're getting comfortable, God, look at how far I've come. Look at how much good I'm doing in the world. Move that bar just a little bit more. Make it just stretch. And when I land there, rest and cultivate, and then move it again. That's the growth. Any other comments? I know there's a lot of stories. I've been gone 2 weeks. There's got to be a lot more out there.
So am I something to say for everybody?
Thank you. Elsie.
I've been out of the bubble. And I noticed, and I had an opportunity to go back and visit with some friends in Florida, which I had been doing for, the last 4 seasons in the wintertime. And it quite freaked me out when I was there, because one of the things that was really strong for me was how much I identified as a couple when I was there, because I was in a relationship with somebody then. So such a strong identification with that. And so it was very intense. I saw a lot of people all at once, and then a lot of people were leaving as I was leaving. So it was very intense to be there. And then what came to mind was this, you know, when I say out of the bubble is like that I have really created this bubble as like a single person now in this environment in Hendersonville, part of the Sangha, and how I hold the Sangha as this place of protection and refuge. So that's the other identity that I've created. And then there's the identity of Bodhisattva that I find myself creating, and just all of that attachment to all of it. And that, and the idea that I need to be much more aware and particular about who I'm surrounding myself with. And even though I've been practicing what seems like a long time, and I've been at Heartwood for, it'll be a year, well, I've been engaged with Heartwood for a long time. I've noticed that Heartwood for me is sort of like taking refuge there was sort of like a place with people that I've created kind of this identity around. And then when I leave it, it's, I experience this suffering. So what dawned on me is that the Heartwood is really the Heartwood to create and hear, so I can take like Heartwood everywhere with me. So that's not to say I'm not really happy to be back, Soma. And it's really crazy out there. And there's all this reaction that goes with that. But to realize that it's always like piercing, like breaking through, piercing those identities and piercing through that and realizing that all of that feels so real and so intense isn't even real, and just piercing that's not reality, and you know, popping on the other side of that. So thank you everyone.
Thanks. Welcome back, Elsie.
You too.
Thank you.
That doesn't mean we're not going to go places, Soma.
Okay.
And I do want to go to Portugal.
Well, it is a beautiful, beautiful area, and the people are incredibly wonderful and friendly. And someday I hope I could maybe go back and experience it differently. I would like us to just stop here for a second and notice the journey we've been on since we started this book. And the joke has been, well, we're not any. I asked Bosita, well, what chapter are we on? And she said, chapter 3. I said, wait, what? Chapter 2. And we've said, you know, that it's so rich. We could be on probably one chapter for the whole year. And yet it is rich and it's alive, and there's a lot for us to learn and walk with. So I'm gonna, since I'm sitting in this chair today, I'm going to invite us to move forward into chapter, wait for it, 5. Yes, I said 5, take 5. We're going to move to 5. Now, I don't know that I'll be sitting here. I'm going to suggest that I sit here next week since I made that bold. Chapter 5. Oh, okay. Okay, yes, the verses that are 5 begins with 5 point. Well, that's a really good point. That was not what I was thinking. Let's do that. Yeah, verses with 5.1. Taming the Mind, part 1. If you're in a book, in 5.1, thank you, Joe, for what you call it, your technical approach? Tactical approach. That's it. I rely on that, Joe. Thank you. The technical approach. So we're going to begin with Taming the Mind, Vigilance, 5.1. And between now and next Tuesday, I'm going to encourage the Venerable, if she's going to sit here, to also be at 5.1. And one of the things further along, we're going to be at the part 2 is going to be talking about not causing harm, gathering virtue, and benefiting others. And we've really started stepping into that. And that's why I'm moving us along. Because if we're talking about stepping in and actually practicing this, I'll take that back, not practicing, actually doing this. It's not about a label of being a bodhisattva. It's about doing and being aware enough inside yourself that you can see and hear and touch and taste all that means. Because that means being truly aware. And in order to see, do all the senses, you've got to be aware. I mean, just walk out this door, you can feel the breeze and you can feel the sun and you can see the colors. I mean, it's rich, it's alive. So my request is that we go through this part 1. If you're in the book, it's to page 127. It's landing on 5.47, the verse, which I'm going to end with today. When you feel the wish to walk about, or even to express yourself in speech, first examine what is in your mind, for they will act correctly who have stable minds. One more time. When you feel the wish to walk about, or even to express yourself in speech, first examine what is in your mind, for they will act correctly who have stable minds. Just take a minute to let that settle and let our words settle and our time together settle. And once again, sitting in your place with your eyes cast down or your eyes closed, find the breath, that faithful friend that is with you always, and notice that you are breathing. In and out. In and out. In and out. By the power of this compassionate practice, may suffering be transformed into peace. May the hearts of all beings be open and their wisdom radiate from within. The merit for all good acts be freely offered to all beings. Tutyampi, Tatyampi, Svaha. Again and yet again, may it be so. Thank you for today. Thank you for being here. Thanks,